Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation.
Hey everybody out there on YouTube, Facebook, and simulcast on gun channels. This is The Right of the People. It is Friday, August 30th, 2019, and we're going to do this yet again. I want to say thank you to everybody for stopping by, even though, there's not too many out there right now because Gizzard Gary just quarked the ever-loving garbage out of me, but that's okay. I know, G said he did it on purpose, but I will believe that Gizzard meant no harm by it. That's what I choose to believe anyway, right? Because Giz would never do such a thing on purpose. He is a scholar and a gentleman. Or something like that. As usual, we have our wonderful panelists here. We have the one, the only, the kingpin himself, David Bowling. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Gary's one of those lovable yet not so harassable type of guys.
You mean the other way around. Harassable yet not so lovable.
Yeah, I'm flexible.
Okay, cool. And speaking of both irascible and lovable, Squib, how you doing, brother?
I was doing fine until you called me irascible.
I figured you would take that more as a badge of honor than the lovable part. I would.
It just got so many consonants in it. Can we just, like he's a jerk. How about that? It's short and sweet.
Aww. Yeah, but irascible sounds classy. See, it even kind of sounds like
he's
classy.
a classy jerk.
That's right. That's right. He's not your average. Yeah, I don't want to say that. He's not your average jerk.
I'm still trying to figure out how to spell it still. So when I get over that, I'll be good with it.
irascible. Irascible.
I don't have a crayon to write it down with because I hate.
Oh, that's right. You are a Marine. I'm sorry. No, TPC. It's not. Squib is not erasable. He's irascible.
Yeah, but a lot of people would like to erase me.
Well, that's on them, right? Out there on the YouTubes, I want to say hello to Seven Wonders, Gun Loving Grandpa, Gabe Stark. Those guys were here early, hanging out in the chat. We got, let's see, anybody else? The Poor Conservative, Zorro 117. Who else is out there? Jason Stewart, Kingpin pulling double duty. See, we got somebody out there on the Facebook side. I'm not sure who's there, but welcome. Glad you stopped by and decided to watch this dumpster fire. Looks like Brian Townsend's out there. Hey, Brian, how you doing? And that's causing me to get notifications. Making all kinds of noise. We got a lot to talk about today. I'm not real happy with talking about it, but the NRA is just the dumpster fire that keeps on burning. I would say the gift that keeps on giving, but no, they're more into trying to get you to give, as we'll talk about here in a minute. We got some more people showing up. Let's see. We got Armament and Axes, Midnight Range TM, the Fry Cook himself, Vanessa Kitty, Boob Sweat Leads to Pearl Necklaces. I don't know how that didn't win the best name on YouTube bracket, because that one's pretty doggone funny. So, yeah. Kingpin says it was rigged. Had to have been rigged.
Now, you've got the winner out there in the audience. You already mentioned him, the Dehydrator.
Yes, the Dehydrator. We got G-Webs out there.
Fellow Buckeye, right? You and
right.
him are both Ohio.
All right, so speaking of the NRA, which, Green Badger Outdoors, hello, hello. Speaking of the NRA, there is yet more. But wait, there's more, as the infomercial guys say. Apparently, Josh Powell was involved in some sort of sexual harassment scandal. This is a piece from The Trace. Yes, I know, it's The Trace, but NRA shielded a top executive accused of sexual harassment. Marketing firm Ackerman McQueen said it would not tolerate further contact between NRA Chief of Staff, well, maybe he was the Chief of Staff too, who knows. All the corruption going on at the NRA, it wouldn't shock me. Anyhow, Chief of Staff Josh Powell and its employees, and that the gun group's reaction drove their professional split. By Mike Speece, August 28, 2019, from The Trace. The National Rifle Association over the past 2 years has grappled with 2 separate sexual harassment allegations against Josh Powell, a senior official, including a case involving an employee. The employee's complaint was settled in 2017 using the nonprofit's funds, or actually our money, according to 3 sources familiar with the matter. Earlier that year, Wayne LaPierre, the organization's leader, had promoted Powell to Executive Director of General Operations. ProPublica could not confirm the settlement amount, which is not noted in the nonprofit's public filings. In a statement, John Fraser, the NRA's General Counsel and Secretary, told ProPublica that Powell denied all the allegations. The NRA opted to confidentially resolve the matter in the best interest of all involved, Fraser said. The disclosure of the settlement comes amid a stream of reports alleging mismanagement and questionable spending by NRA leadership. The organization faces congressional inquiries and investigations into its tax-exempt status by attorneys general in New York and Washington, D.C. Powell is a top advisor to LaPierre and is among the NRA's highest-paid officials, with compensation of nearly $800,000 in 2017. No wonder these guys are trying to hold on to power. In a separate harassment dispute in 2018, Powell's behavior toward a woman who works for Ackerman McQueen, then the NRA's advertising firm, escalated tensions in their decades-long business relationship and caused Ackerman to bar him from any further contact with its employees. Ackerman told ProPublica in a written statement that the firm formally declared to Mr. LaPierre that it would not have any more dealings with Mr. Powell. Ackerman said, "There was clear reason to believe, supported by evidence, that he sexually harassed one of our employees, and we would not tolerate his further involvement with any of our employees in order to protect their right to a safe work environment." Ackerman said the NRA refused to cooperate in addressing the complaint against Powell. Instead, Ackerman said Powell received the full support of Mr. LaPierre and the board of directors. Over the last 4 months, Ackerman and the NRA have been locked in litigation in Virginia State Court, with the gun group accusing the firm of dubious billing practices and Ackerman countersuing for defamation. Before the legal dispute, the 2 entities spent 4 decades working closely together. Ackerman helped shape the NRA's messaging and public image. The NRA responded to Ackerman's statement on behalf of itself and Powell. A spokesperson for the organization called the firm's claim part of a larger extortion demand in which Ackerman said the NRA must withdraw its lawsuit or face a smear campaign that would include sexual harassment allegations against one of its executives. Ackerman is now delivering on its threat. We are not surprised. The organization's leadership is focused on external threats, but the real crisis is of its own making. Ackerman said the NRA's false narrative grows more ridiculous each day, and its response to Powell's actions created what became an irreparable rift in the business relationship, which brought tens of millions of dollars annually to Ackerman. We believe our decision to take this decisive action to protect our employees contributed to the program of retaliation against Ackerman McQueen, and NRA board members were not being told about these problems, Ackerman's statement says. But NRA spokesperson Andrew Arulanandam, one of these days, as much as I'm saying this, I'll actually get that name right. Andrew Arulanandam said the organization acted appropriately and swiftly in response to the harassment allegation involving Ackerman. The NRA removed Mr. Powell from his position as liaison between the NRA and Ackerman, and Mr. Powell had no further involvement with Ackerman. The spokesperson called Ackerman's harassment allegations cryptic, adding that they first surfaced in October 2018, shortly after Mr. Powell participated in an effort to significantly reduce Ackerman's budget with the NRA. Immediately, remarks allegedly made more than a year before became fodder for a harassment claim, accompanied by a demand that Mr. Powell be excluded from any further budget negotiations with the agency. The NRA committed in good faith to investigation of the allegation, but the accuser and Ackerman declined to participate in any interview about the alleged incident. Despite recent negative publicity, the NRA continues to have broad support among Republican members of Congress and with President Donald Trump, who was elected in 2016 after the NRA spent more than $30 million to boost his candidacy. After recent discussions with LaPierre in the wake of mass shootings in Dayton, Ohio and El Paso, Trump has reportedly backed away from favoring more stringent background checks for gun owners. After receiving a tip, ProPublica asked Ackerman to respond to questions about a harassment complaint involving one of its employees. The woman who filed the complaint did not respond to a request for comment. G-Webs, this is running on XSplit. Because G-Webs asked if this was OBS or XSplit. It's XSplit. Where am I? Powell has served as LaPierre's chief of staff since 2016. In December 2018, after the Ackerman dispute occurred, LaPierre announced to staff that Powell would step away from his additional duties as Executive Director of General Operations and join the NRA's legal team as a senior strategist in a high-stakes lawsuit that had been filed that spring against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and the New York Department of Financial Services. I think what they're talking about is the Kerry Guard debacle. Powell has long been a source of contention among NRA staff and even some board members. Before arriving at NRA headquarters in 2016, he ran 2 upscale clothing catalogs that were intended to appeal to wealthy outdoorsmen. Maybe that's where Wayne shopped. Vendors working with Powell sued him on at least 20 occasions, alleging unpaid invoices totaling more than $400,000. In 2018, Powell came under scrutiny from NRA accountants, and a document that compiled a list of top concerns for the board's audit committee, which provides the organization with fiscal oversight. Arrangements that involve Powell imposed alleged conflicts of interest were repeatedly flagged. The accountants noted payments to Powell's father, a photographer, and referenced his wife, Colleen Gallagher, who in late 2017 was hired by one of the NRA's top fundraising vendors, McKenna & Associates. An NRA spokesperson said in May that the audit committee was aware of the relationship and approved the consulting agreement with McKenna. In June, Robert Brown, an NRA board member, emailed LaPierre and Frazier about Powell. ProPublica contained a copy of the note, which is addressed to Frazier. John, it says, since Wayne refuses to respond to my emails, please pass on to him the message below. Wayne, the message reads, at the last NRA BOD meeting, you promised me you were going to terminate that worthless scoundrel, Josh Powell, in 60 days. Well, 60 days have passed. When are you going to fire him? Brown declined to provide a comment for this story. I do not discuss internal NRA politics with the media, he told ProPublica in an email. Period. So, you know, this whole thing with the NRA just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. You know, I hate to see it. I really do. I really wish that instead of all this controversy and drama, that the NRA were strong. That the NRA were not only strong, but strong in doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because we have these 2020 elections coming up, and this only hurts. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Is it bad that I'm wearing my NRA t-shirt right now?
No, it's not bad. This is the U.S. of A, and you have every right to express such sentiments. I ain't gonna hold it against you.
I have a problem with every single time that they mention the NRA, they have to mention that the NRA spent $30 million on, the Trump campaign. That's nothing. If you go back before the Trump campaign, the total amount of money that the NRA spent on presidential elections and governor elections and stuff like that was a drop in the bucket compared to all the other donors. And then even if you just take the Trump campaign and look at the $30 million, which I just take for granted that that's the actual number. I haven't actually looked into it myself.
Sure.
That's still a drop in the bucket. Only thing they're doing is that's more propaganda to
Absolutely.
Orange Man bad and gun people paid Orange Man's way into the White House. You know, it's totally trying to set up a boogeyman character by mentioning that every single conversation about the NRA that they print.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's the entire point. Is they want to tar the NRA with the Orange Man bad brush. They want to tar Donald Trump with the NRA bad brush. I mean, they're like getting that all together and mixing it all up and getting as much mileage out of that as they can. Sure. You're absolutely right. That is nothing but a transparent attempt to tar each other. You know, that's what the media does. The media does what the media does. G Webb says the NRA is an opportunity. We need to use our 2A tourniquet on it. Not sure what he's trying to say. Maybe cut the limb off and to sacrifice the body. I don't know.
I think go ahead, Squid.
The NRA has been the big name on Capitol Hill when it comes to gun rights. People can say whatever they want to say about the things that they didn't do that we wanted them to do, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there about that too. I'm not saying they're saints. They're not. None of them are.
Never.
Okay? None of them are. But some of the things people are out on YouTube running their mouths about, they're not getting their facts right, and they're not helping. The NRA is the name that you hear out there. When CNN or any of these other networks are talking about who was talking to the president after this mass shooting about, they never say the GOA or the FPC. That doesn't mean the GOA or the FPC don't have potential to get bigger. It doesn't mean the GOA or FPC don't have, and the other organizations as well. I'm just using those two. But
Second Amendment Foundation.
They don't have the potential to do, and the list goes on and on. But the NRA is the name in the room. It's the one that when I bought my first gun, I said, maybe I should join the NRA. I didn't go, maybe I should join the GOA. Then there was one of them that I tried to join in the late 90s, early 2000s that said, we're not taking new members at this time. It's like, well, F you then. Yeah, it was the GOA or the FPC or the 2AF, one of them. Anyhow, the whole point being is these smaller groups can use this as a springboard to get more numbers. And these smaller groups can use this as an example of what could happen to them if they turn into the NRA. And I can tell you, the GOA wants to be the NRA. They want the money, they want the power, they want all that stuff. They might do a better job for us for a while, but I think eventually everybody, I don't care who you are, power corrupts, money corrupts. So we need to keep all of our gun rights organizations in check, and this is the time where we're seeing this stuff where we can all jump together and say burn it down, which is, I don't think, a good idea, or we can say we never want to have an organization do this again. We want to try to fix the NRA. We got to get Wayne out of there. That's true. But I don't think destroying the NRA is a good idea, because if we destroy the NRA, we're going to look bad. We're going to look weak in front of the anti-gunners. We're going to look weak in front of the politicians. And once again, that's the household name that everybody knows. I want the media and I want the politicians to vilify the NRA. I want them to be afraid when the NRA shows up in Congress to talk about gun control, or has a meeting with the president to talk about gun control, or calls one of them. I want them, in the same way that the media vilifies the AK-47 or the AR-15, in some ways I want that, because if I'm going to use that as a force multiplier to defend my home in a riot situation or where we're outnumbered or whatever, I want them to see that, air quotes, assault weapon, and I mean air quotes, by the way, and be afraid of it and run away instead of trying to fight me. Well, I want the NRA to have that same thing. So in order to do that, we have to both keep them from going away, but also figure out a way to fix them. I think people have been trying And I think it's really hard to get the old guard out and get the new guard in. But we have to be careful when that new guard comes in. We can't let them stay in power too long because they'll just turn into what we have. And the same thing goes with the other firearms. Well, the other firearms organizations, we have to do the same thing with them. We can't let too many people get too much power and too much money and stay in that position too long, because that's what will happen. We'll have corruption. But we still need to have, I would love for the FPC and the 2AF and the GOA and a state organization to show up on Capitol Hill and the politicians to be just as scared of them as they are the NRA. Wouldn't it be great if we had like 5 groups down there fighting and they were scared? The only one they know is the NRA. Wouldn't it be great if they knew all of them? So I think some of the gun rights organizations are using this as an opportunity to grow their numbers, and they don't care if the NRA burns because they're competition. And I think a lot of people are butthurt over the whole NRA thing, and I don't think as many of those people that are up have been a member of the NRA very long. And at the end of the day, do what you want to do. If you want to tear up your membership card or not renew your membership or not become a member, or that's fine. That's fine. I'm not telling you not to. But we really need to look at what's happening now and say, don't let the other organizations get like this. And if the NRA gets fixed, or if we can fix the NRA, let's never let this happen again. But let's make sure that the politicians are scared of groups like the NRA.
Yep. And G, talking about this being an opportunity, he says it's an opportunity to work together to repair. If we do nothing standing alone as it burns, that accomplishes nothing in the long game. And I think he's right. I think that, again, and I've said it before, that I think the best case scenario would be that the NRA fixes itself and the people on the board, decide that they need to do whatever they need to do to get rid of this negative optics, because by now it's just done. We need to get rid of Wayne. We need to get rid of the old guard, the people in charge right now who have bollocked things up to the point where it's, we have this ongoing dumpster fire.
Well,
unfortunately, they're circling the wagons and protecting these people. That's the problem. Just as this article talked about with Josh Powell.
But they've tried to oust Wayne. They've tried to oust him. Can't they just buy him off? Can't they just pay him off to go away?
I don't know. I think Wayne's already siphoned enough off of the NRA that, hell, why would he take a one-time payment when he can get more over time? Looks like we got Night Strike joining us. How you doing, sir? Hello?
Where's that mute button? Oh, did you see my shirt earlier?
No, what'd it say? Shall not be infringed? I saw something.
Yeah, that's what it said. So I don't have to yell anymore. I just have a t-shirt that says it now.
Ah, sweet.
Yeah,
so that means he hates Patriot in the dark.
Well, no.
Oh.
The t-shirt's got Braille in it on it, so
No, those are his nipple rings.
Business cards, which shall not be infringed in Braille form.
Mm-hmm.
Totally fine.
Okay.
You'll enjoy that.
Well, with the NRA, this is also a case of. But wait, there's more.
Nice.
There's more.
Come on, really?
Yeah.
It's a special TV offer.
Yep, there's more. This is a piece by Asher Stockler in Newsweek from 8/28/19. NRA burning $100,000 to relocate its board meeting from Alaska to Washington, D.C. The National Rifle Association is spending around $100,000 to abruptly relocate its board meeting to Washington, D.C., according to an email sent by the NRA's General Counsel and Secretary John Fraser that was obtained by Newsweek. On Tuesday evening, Fraser announced to the Board of Directors that plans to hold its mid-September meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, were being canceled and redirected to the nation's capital as federal lawmakers consider several gun control proposals. Pardon me, please. Excuse me. But in May 20 In a May 22nd email to top NRA officials, including the organization's CEO Wayne LaPierre and its newly installed CFO Craig Spray, Fraser announced that a previous analysis had concluded that moving the planned meeting would run up costs approaching $100,000 due to both the cancellation fees with prearranged vendors and the higher price of room and board expenses in the D.C. metro area. The NRA has received substantial criticism in recent months as reports and leaked memos have documented the group's lavish spending. Then it goes on to devotes a paragraph to all of Lil Wayne's MTV Cribs type life.
How much you want to bet they weren't flying on Delta Airlines?
Yeah, probably not. Stakeholders are concerned about the NRA's ability to maintain its current spendthrift attitude. At one point, former NRA President Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North wrote a memo to the board of directors claiming that invoices from the group's outside counsels were draining NRA cash at mind-boggling speed. During the first quarter of 2019, NRA was billed $100,000 a day for William Brewer. Let's see. NRA's previously defended all the expenses associated with everything. Let's see. The relocation decision appears to have been influenced by a package of gun control proposals that began to circulate around Capitol Hill in the wake of mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton in early August. The email announcing the change in venue noted that the NRA could more effectively influence Congress in close proximity to legislators as they consider these bills after the August recess. Wayne Anthony Ross, who sits on a board of directors, told Newsweek that he was disappointed in the decision to relocate the meeting away from his home state. "We worked for 4 or 5 years to get it approved by the board to come up here," he said in a conversation. "In 2005, we had the NRA board come to Alaska. We have the highest percentage of NRA members of any state in the union." Ross said that he found out about the decision yesterday along with his board of directors colleagues pursuant to Fraser's letter. He said he was told the decision was made in just the last 48 to 72 hours, weeks after the introduction of gun control legislation on Capitol Hill became an immediately apparent prospect. Let's see, I'm not going to go on about all the rest of this crap. Although this article does mention Save the Second, says a separate nonprofit organization, Save the Second, has incorporated with the sole mission of reforming the culture and governance of the NRA. The group is helmed by longtime NRA members who say they represent grassroots supporters of the NRA whose frustrations are being overlooked by management, one of whom being Rob Pincus, who Ghost and Clover has had on their shows, and I have interviewed. So Rob's a great guy. I am a definite supporter of the mission of Save the Second for sure. The NRA recently, as a matter of fact, it was yesterday, I got an email from the NRA, I'm sure many of you did too, that responds to all this. It's from August 29th, 2019, from Marion P. Hammer. Are David Delaquila's gun rights worth $100,000? Worth more than $100 million? Worth whatever it takes to defeat the anti-gun agitators and enemies of the Second Amendment? You're damn right. Whether he donates money to NRA to fund the fight or not, NRA is fighting for his rights and yours. For those who don't know who David Delaquila is, he is the rich guy that is getting together a bunch of other rich guys to stop donating to NRA. He's been donating to NRA over a long period and has had left plans in his will to leave a sum of money and or property to the NRA when he passes. And he's like, nope, not till Wayne's gone. And he has set up a website to encourage other donors and has gained a lot of traction to withhold their funds until the NRA starts to straighten up and fly right. But anyhow, and yes, the NRA has just moved its fall board meeting from Anchorage, Alaska to the Washington, D.C. area at a cost of around $100,000. Why? Keep reading. Anti-gun Democrats in Congress have announced that gun control hearings have been scheduled on Capitol Hill. The timing is clearly to take advantage of Wayne LaPierre, NRA board members, and the key NRA staff members being in Alaska. If they're in Alaska, it would make it impossible for NRA's officers and senior staff to be engaged in the fight for your rights in the nation's capital. So it was imperative that the meeting be moved so the officers and staff are fully engaged, with the full board also there to give support and assistance. David Delaquila's gun rights are worth whatever NRA has to spend to protect his gun rights, because his gun rights are the same as yours and mine. Help fund the fight. See, here comes where they put the bite on you.
So I have to ask, Budget. Does that mean they've been in Alaska for the past 3 years doing this?
Apparently, I know they were scheduled to have a cruise in Alaska for some of these board members, and there was some pushback on that. Some people are saying that's part of why they switched the meeting. I would like to believe that it's primarily to do with the gun control legislation, because their defense there does make sense. It is a whole lot easier to fight against this stuff if you're in D.C. than trying to do it from Alaska. So, I guess I would have to give them a pass on this, and kind of go with it and believe them on it. But I think it's funny they're talking about, oh yeah, it's worth it, so give us more money. And it goes to give a website address to donate to the NRA, and says that she just went to the donation page and made my donation to help Wayne protect David Delaquila's gun rights and yours and mine. I invite you to do the same thing. Donating is what you can do to help in this critical time. Give as much as you can to the Wayne LaPierre Wardrobe and Intern Housing Fund. NRA needs your help to save our gun rights. Nobody else can do what the NRA does. I would beg to differ, but nobody else has the gravitas, I guess, that the NRA had and is losing.
I have a better idea.
Sure.
Okay. If you can, donate to GunTube's Indiegogo. We haven't hit any stretch goals yet, but we've made our initial goal.
Yay!
Here we go.
Or donate to the GOA or the Second Amendment Foundation, where they're actually fighting for your rights.
Absolutely right. I am all for someone being a.
They have boots on the
Second
ground
Amendment
in many states fighting for your rights right now.
Can you buy or sell a nonprofit?
I don't know. I am not a lawyer, so I couldn't tell you.
If a nonprofit can be purchased by another nonprofit, then maybe we just wait for the NRA to run out of money, and all these guys go scurrying like the cockroaches they are, and it's up for sale really, really cheap, and the GOA just comes in there and buys it, lock, stock, and barrel. No pun intended.
Hello, all. Would they have the money to do that? I don't know.
Yeah, but if it was insolvent, if the NRA was in a position where they were going to file bankruptcy, or they were out of money, they had their name and they had a few things, but they really didn't have any. They could be bought up real cheap. It happens all the time in business with for-profit companies. They're in trouble. And somebody else buys them up, and they don't buy them necessarily to keep all their execs and keep all their employees. What they do is they buy them to get their contracts with other companies, or they buy them for their patents, or they buy them for some of their locations, their buildings, things like that. They buy them for maybe some of their superstar employees. But what if the NRA runs itself flat broke and the GOA buys them up at a dirt cheap price?
Okay, I'm. Thank you for the invite there, Mike.
By the way, welcome, Armament and Axes.
I'm going to say this. What if nonprofit organizations like the NRA didn't pay their executives $1 gazillion and they all live high on the hog, while us, the average people working for a living, are paying their wages?
Yeah, but A&A, that happens in all nonprofits, not just gun ones. So.
Point being is that's where the NRA is gone, and it should have never went there. Ration, all these people are getting paid all this big money, and the 100,000 to.
You keep breaking up, dude.
I'm sorry.
Well,
How many members? What's membership dues?
For who?
100 grand ain't nothing for them to move. You see what I'm saying?
Kingpin saying you can't buy a nonprofit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know nothing about that, but nonprofit, my butt.
The problem comes in the ownership. trying to buy a nonprofit, then you've got to establish ownership.
Yep. Glimtech says they would dissolve the 501c3 and the name NRA would be the only thing for sale.
Yeah, that's basically that's basically a lot simpler way of explaining it than that.
Of course,
Well, I've
G-Webs
said it
rightly points
before.
out that they do have a lot of physical assets, like 3 museums full of donated guns from U.S. history, plus all the ranges they own and whatnot. And then there's, all the suits and stuff.
Yeah, they do a lot of good things on the side, and they are broken up into different divisions to kind of hide their money and do everything else, just like a corporation. They run like a business, and that's what they are. They're going to fight gun control only enough to keep people interested in sending them money. They're not going to fight gun control altogether because they're not going to work themselves out of a job. None of the gun rights organizations are. But the thing is, they shouldn't be a nonprofit. They should be a for-profit. But that nonprofit status has all these little perks. I don't really care how much money they spend or waste. I don't care how much their execs get paid. I don't care about any of that. I just want them to do their job. It's just like a big company. I don't care how much they pay their board of directors, what sort of bonuses they pay their employees, what sort of junkets, how much garbage they waste on. As long as they make a good product or they keep Americans working, that's all I care about. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't care about any of this stuff at all if they were doing more to fight for gun rights.
That's the excellent point right there you're making, is they do just enough to make sure their wallets are paid thick.
Now, G-Webs out in the chat very rightfully points out that they also have traveling units to do things like education, Eddie Eagle, range safety, range building. The NRA is so much more than offices and Wayne and suits. I agree.
Well, if Wayne is spending $40 million a week right now, and we're getting XYZ in governmental or political attention from the NRA, even if he was doing 10 times more than he is, take that extra $40 million a week that he's spending and put that even further toward fighting for our rights. It's not like we're ever going to win. We could get the NFA canceled, constitutional carry everywhere, and celebrate, and 5 seconds later there's going to be a new gun bill come up. This isn't ever going to stop.
And you're right. It doesn't matter who we have fighting the fight. This is never going to stop. There's a saying. I used to work in treatment for juvenile felons, and earlier in my career before I moved to the detention side of things, and we had a saying. Treatment is a process, not an event. This is not something that's one and done. You can sit back and go, "Phew, man, glad that's over with." This is something that's always going to be ongoing. I think G-Webs at one point likened it to being the same as mowing your lawn. You don't mow your lawn once in the summer and you're done. You got to keep doing it and keep doing it. So, this is never going to end, ever. As long as there are human beings, there's always going to be somebody trying to take your rights from you. And you're always going to need someone, an organization of individuals together to group together and try and fight it. Always, always, always.
I mean, they could look at it in a political way and just play the game. We talked about it before. The NRA is public enemy number one. Definitely totally aware of that. That's really the only, none of the other organizations matter. I mean, I know that they matter, but when we're talking about Nancy Pelosi and mainstream media, they don't matter.
They don't get the press that the
because
NRA
nobody
does.
cares about them. Nobody cares about them because they're not the big guy on the block. The big punching bag is the NRA. So with all the corruption that's going on now, if you could take the biggest organization that's the biggest punching bag and the biggest name out there and say, we've had enough and we're cleaning house from the inside, and now here, look, Look at this brand new NRA that we have. No $40 million suits, no trips to the Bahamas. This is 24 hours a day, Washington, D.C., state capitals all over the country. Here's our budget. Here's how much we spent. Here's how much we didn't spend. And just
I'd
clean
like
it
to
up
see a
from
lot
the
more
inside.
transparency.
That could be, then you could stand out in front of the NRA building with a megaphone and say, look what we did. You know, we believe in law and order. We believe in fairness. We believe in transparency. So we saw that it was messed up and we cleaned it up. Now come look at it. That's a huge story. That's a
what they
lot
should
bigger of
do.
a story than Nancy Pelosi standing
That's
there
what they should
dancing on
do.
the ashes.
That's exactly what they should do. But they're not
We
going to.
can clean it up, but if you want some grassroots minimum wage clown to run the NRA, you'll run it into the ground too.
Oh no, you
Those
gotta pay.
people on
You gotta pay a
Capitol Hill.
businessman that knows what he's doing to run it, of course.
Well, those people on Capitol Hill only respond to certain things. You pretty much, you need somebody who's one of them. Unfortunately, Wayne LaPierre is one of them. He's not the one of them we want. He's been in there too long. We may have to have a situation where, in order to make it work as the bully, as the big, punching bag out there and all that, is we have to have one of those sorts of people in charge, but we just give them term limits, and you can't go for a second term, or you've got to wait so many times to get back in, years and years later. That way you've got somebody that the people on Capitol Hill relate to and will listen to. But if you get somebody in there who's Joe Blow small businessman and is Honest Bob and everything else, they're gonna laugh him right out of there with his suit that he bought at Kohl's. So to some extent, you have to have a certain image in order to get those politicians to listen to you. And I don't have a problem if they took some of the money they weren't spending on wasted crap and buying politicians. I really wouldn't care. But all kinds of organizations do this stuff. Schools take your tax money and fly the teachers and principal out to Hawaii for a 1 or 2 week junket where they're doing a seminar, okay, with your tax dollars. And then when it comes time for your kid to go to school, they're asking you to buy Kleenex and hand sanitizer for the classrooms because they got no money. This is the government. I'm just saying, this happens everywhere. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying that we should accept it, or we should settle for it. But this happens all over. So just understand that these politicians on Capitol Hill live this certain lifestyle. They come from this certain background. They're used to being treated a certain way. And they're not going to, if you or I tried to talk to them, they wouldn't give us a time of day. But if you've got somebody who's rich or famous or is a politician like them, they'll talk to them. So we've got to, I think if we want to make the NRA that big punching bag and make it effective, we've got to find somebody with that sort of background, that sort of clout. But we need to keep them in check by having audits, by having people in there that can vote them out if they're not doing the right thing, like actually give the board of directors some power, or
That would be nice.
Give term limits or something like that. We need some checks and balances in the NRA, more so than saying, hey, we're going to put Honest Bob in here and he's going to do the job, and every congressman laughs him right out of Capitol Hill.
You make so many good points. The NRA, they're all overpaid. They pay attention to the money. You're in the club. That's honest. Here? Oh, come on over here, buddy. Yeah, it's
all right, guys. Let's try to move on from this NRA crap for now. I'm so over
You mean
it.
you don't have a third thing?
What's that? No, I don't have a third. I don't have another. But wait, there's more for the NRA. That was it. We have other stuff to talk about. Earlier this week, since I didn't get to do my show last Friday because of the whole camping thing, I decided to go live and talk about red flag laws. Well, I want to go back to that subject a little bit since, it's been on my mind. What with this Americans Against Red Flags rally we're having in Columbus on September 7th, which, by the way, I have heard. I have not exactly confirmed it, but I've heard that Caitlin Bennett is going to be speaking there from Liberty Hangouts, the Kent State gun girl, the one that took her graduation pictures with her AR-10. She's supposed to be there, so that might make things a bit interesting, because usually when she shows up, so does the left, and it's pretty loud and obnoxious, so that should it should make for good video anyway, right? Anyhow, going back to red flags, I ran into a couple articles this over the last few days that a couple of them I didn't know about when I talked about this the other day, and it kind of, they illustrate three things. Number one, red flag laws are unneeded. Number two, unconstitutional. And number three, ineffective. So let's take a look at these. This first one is by, it would help if I was using the mouse for the proper computer. Is by Tracy Bloom, Carlos Saucedo, and Kimberly Cheng. But what, doggone it, I can't remember the source, and I didn't write it down, my bad. But it's about a, disgruntled employee with firearms arrested after threatening mass shooting at Long Beach Hotel, August 21st, 2019. A possible mass shooting was thwarted when Long Beach police arrested a disgruntled Marriott employee who had access to weapons and allegedly told a coworker he planned to shoot everyone he saw at his workplace, the city's police chief said Wednesday. Police released this photo of the weapons seized in the arrest, of course. I don't have that. Rudolfo Montoya, 37, was arrested without incident at his home in Huntington Beach on Tuesday, according to Long Beach Police Department Chief Robert Luna. Investigators searched the home and seized multiple firearms, including an assault rifle, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and high-capacity magazines, Luna told reporters at a news conference where the arrest was announced. I love how they try to say hundreds of rounds is a big thing. I guess maybe in California it is.
Yeah, every time they say hundreds of rounds or even like 5,000 rounds, all of us are going,
rookie numbers.
Or lightweight or, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's just normal. Now, the thing that bothers me is he threatened people.
Yeah.
That's where it gets funky. But to say they found how many guns, I'm like, well, crap, that's just a good start.
Yeah, exactly. I believe the police department has worked to avert what could have been a real tragedy in this community, Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia said. The investigation began when a worker contacted authorities on Monday evening to alert them to a verbal threat of violence against the Long Beach Marriott, according to police. Montoya was employed as a cook at the hotel, which is located in the 4700 block of Airport Plaza. Investigators believe he was upset over some recent workplace activity having to do with human resources. Well, who hasn't been upset at HR from at one point or another, right? But you don't threaten people. In expressing his anger to the co-worker, Montoya allegedly detailed a plot where he would shoot fellow employees and guests coming into the hotel, according to the police chief. He also described the tools he would use to carry out the plot. Suspect Montoya had clear plans, intent, and the means to carry out an act of violence that may have resulted in a mass casualty incident, Luna said. But according to the chief, the possible plan was thwarted when the co-worker contacted police, prompting an investigation that led to a search warrant and an arrest. You're noticing the phrase that they're not using here, right? Luna credited the employee's tip with potentially saving lives and reminded the public that coming forward with information is the only way these types of incidents can be reported. We've seen countless acts of senseless violence throughout the country in the last several months. We want to remind everyone that if you see, hear, or read about any threats or suspicious activity, I believe that it is your obligation to report that to the police. Investigators are looking into how Montoya obtained the cache of firearms and ammunition. He has no known criminal record, but some of the firearms may have been illegal to possess in California, as were the high-capacity magazines confiscated from the suspect's residence, according to Luna. What? But they're illegal. How can he get them? Montoya was being...
Hey, wasn't it you that pointed out? Pretty sure it was you. I've shared that many times. Yeah, Chicago. Yep. Illegal. Yeah.
Montoya was being
My thing is, if somebody makes a threat at work like this, and somebody reports them, and the police go down there, if they're going to go into the house, they better have a warrant. And if they go in there and they find a pump action 12 gauge and nothing else, and that's not illegal or something else like that, and then they shouldn't be able to charge them with anything unless they can charge them with making threats or something like that. So
which is what happened in this case.
Yeah, if the threats gave them an excuse to get a warrant, they had a warrant, and then they found it, and they could hit them with the firearms charges or charge the threat. My concern is just that if they did come into your house with a warrant, didn't find anything illegal in your home, didn't find anything, but they still wanted to charge you because you had a weapon. You hadn't done anything with it. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on how the laws are for making threats. What's considered a realistic threat and what's not.
Well, it says he had detailed plans on how he would do it and what he would use. That sounds pretty realistic to me.
Yeah, that's pretty cut and dry there. Like I said.
So would you consider the warrant then? Would you consider the warrant due process or?
Sure. You get the warrant.
Okay.
You get the warrant because the standard to get a warrant isn't just somebody thinks somebody might do something. There has to be something else. There has to be probable cause there. Not like the red flag or proceedings where it's you think somebody might do something but you don't really know, and no, I don't have anything detailed or no plans, but I just he's acting funny.
Warrants take the person. Red flag laws take the property.
Exactly.
Leave the person behind.
Good point. All right. Yeah.
He was booked on suspicion of manufacturing and distributing assault weapons, possession of an assault weapon, and making criminal threats, according to a police news release. So there we have this whole process that we just talked about that went through. This guy made threats at work. They were detailed. It was a credible threat. It was reported to the police. They investigated it. Found probable cause to get a search warrant, got the search warrant, did more investigation, found that this was sufficient to arrest the guy. That's how the thing is supposed to work. Existing law functions when it's used. Not like with the Sutherland Springs jackass, when the Air Force didn't report his conviction to Nix so that he could still buy guns. Not with the Parkland jackass, where there was 37 contacts with police and no one followed through on anything. This worked. This is how the process is supposed to be. Red flag laws where someone says, well, you might do something and then you have to prove that you're not going to? Bull. Totally unconstitutional. And as I said a few days ago as I read my speech here on the show, I might be just a loudmouth with a camera and a microphone, but that doesn't sound like it meets the constitutional bar to me. And I'm not the only one that thinks so. Apparently, Judge Andrew Napolitano agrees with me. Andrew Napolitano, gun confiscation under red flag laws is unconstitutional. By Andrew Napolitano from Fox News. Judge Andrew Napolitano, let's see. When tragedy strikes, as it did in 2 mass killings this month, there is always the urge to pressure the government to do something. Governments are animated by the belief that doing something, any demonstrable overt behavior, will show that they are in control. I understand the natural fears that good folks have that an El Paso or a Dayton episode might happen again, but doing something for the sake of appearance can be dangerous to personal liberty. When the Constitution was written, the idea of owning arms and keeping them in the home was widespread. The colonists had just defeated the armies of King George III. The colonial weapon of choice was the Kentucky long rifle, while British soldiers used their army-issued version of Brown Besses. Each rifle had its advantages, but the Kentucky, it was actually a German design, perfected and manufactured in Pennsylvania, was able to strike a British soldier at 200 yards, a start we had of the passionate defense of freedom and homeland, to say nothing of superior leadership. It doesn't take any advanced understanding of mathematics or ballistics to appreciate why we won the Revolution. It is a matter of historical fact that the colonists won the war largely by superior firepower. 6 years after the war was over, delegates met in Philadelphia in secret and drafted what was to become the Constitution. The document, largely written in James Madison's hand, was then submitted to Congress and to the states which began the process of ratification. By then, Americans had already formed two basic political parties. The Federalists wanted a muscular central government, and the Anti-Federalists wanted a loose confederation of states. Where am I? Okay. The concept of a red flag law, which permits the confiscation of lawfully owned weapons from a person because of what the person might do, violates both the presumption of innocence and the due process requirement of proof of criminal behavior before liberty can be infringed. Yet the memory of a parliament that behaved as if it could write any law, tax any event, or impair any liberty, coupled with the fear that new government here might drift toward tyranny, gave birth to the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. The debate over the Bill of Rights was not about rights. That debate had been resolved in 1776 when the Declaration of Independence declared our basic human rights to be inalienable. The Bill of Rights debates were about whether the federal government needed restraints imposed upon it in the Constitution itself. The Federalists thought the Bill of Rights was superfluous because they argued that no American government would knowingly restrict freedom. The Anti-Federalists thought constitutional restraints were vital to the preservation of personal liberty because no government can be trusted to preserve personal liberty. Second among the personal liberties preserved in the Bill of Rights from impairment by the government was the right to self-defense. Thomas Jefferson called that the right to self-preservation. Fast forward to today, and we see the widespread and decidedly un-American reaction to the tragedies of El Paso and Dayton. Both mass murders were animated by hatred and planned by madness, but because both were carried out using weapons that looked like those issued by the military, Democrats have called for the outright confiscation of these weapons. Where is the constitutional authority to do that? In a word, nowhere. The government's job is to preserve personal liberty. Does it do its job when it weakens personal liberty instead? Stated differently, how does confiscating firearms from the law-abiding conceivably reduce the ability of madmen to get those weapons? When did madmen begin obeying gun laws? These arguments against confiscation have largely resonated with Republicans, yet, because they feel they must do something, they have fallen prey to the concept of limited confiscation, known by the euphemism of red flag laws. Oh, here's where this paragraph should have been. The concept of a red flag law, which permits the confiscation of lawfully owned weapons from a person because of what the person might do, violates both the presumption of innocence and the due process requirement of proof of criminal behavior before liberty can be infringed. The presumption of innocence puts the burden for proving a case on the government. Because the case to be proven, might the gun owner be dangerous? If proven, will result in the loss of a fundamental liberty. The presumption of innocence also mandates that the case can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The Republican proposal lowers the standard of proof to a preponderance of the evidence, a more likely than not standard. That was done because it is impossible to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that an event might happen. This is exactly why the might happen standard is unconstitutional and alien to our jurisprudence. In 2008, Justice Antonin Scalia wrote for the Supreme Court that the right to keep and bear arms in the home is an individual pre-political right. Due process demands that this level of right, we are not talking about the privilege of driving a car on a government street, can only be taken away after a jury conviction or a guilty plea to a felony. The might happen standard of red flag laws violates this basic principle. The same Supreme Court case that also reflects the Kentucky long gun lesson. The people are entitled to own and possess the same arms as the government, for the same reason as the colonists did, to fight off tyrants should they seize liberty or property. If the government can impair Second Amendment protected liberties on the basis of what a person might do, as opposed to what a person actually did do, to show that it is doing something in response to a public clamor, then no liberty in America is safe. Which liberty will the government infringe upon next? I can only give Judge Napolitano applause on that one. I think he hit that spot on.
That's the article I sent you, isn't it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's the article I sent you, isn't it?
Yes, that is absolutely the article you sent me. And Judge Napolitano said it far more eloquently than I did. Because again, I'm just a fat loudmouth with a camera and a microphone.
But he had some good points in there, which you should throw in your speech when you do go and give your speech.
Oh, I think I'm going to be rewriting it soon and including some of that stuff. Absolutely right. I will. Yeah, if you're going to steal, steal from the best, right?
Cite sources.
Absolutely right. I will probably quote the man. Because that's
'Cause he made a lot of good points in that article. I read that article several times, since forth. I mean, I even read it to Roll Call, and Roll Call's like, "Damn, that's some good shit." Excuse
Yeah,
the expression, of course.
I second that comment.
Hey, Kingpin, what was that you had to say about Judge Napolitano?
Yeah, he's a fat loudmouth too. So you don't have to worry about it.
But hey, he's right though. In this case,
no,
I don't
I'm
always
not
agree with.
disagreeing.
I don't agree
Yeah.
with everything the man says, but this, spot
Yeah,
on.
sure. Yeah, no, I agree totally.
We're not going to
Good-
agree
good
with
article.
everyone, 100% all the time. But there are certain times when we agree with each other because, sometimes, good ideas are good ideas and bad ideas are bad ideas.
Yep.
Yeah,
So there-
Mike had said that he was listening to him because he's just a fat loud, and I said that the judge is too. That it's supposed to be a joke. I wasn't trying to attack the fact that he wrote something good or whether I like him or not. I was just trying to make a joke.
So you never mind.
You're breaking up.
I'm always breaking up.
Yep, you are, Grandpa.
So there we have the first two articles that show red flag laws are unnecessary and red flag laws are unconstitutional. Here's where we're going to show ineffective. This is a piece from the SecondAmendmentDaily.com. Red flag failure. Police take guns from Illinois man. He kills mother with a samurai sword. Park Ridge, Illinois. A man in a Chicago suburb was arrested by local police after killing his own mother by stabbing her repeatedly with a samurai sword in the chest. Park Ridge police had removed David Kristeniak's, I'm just going to call him David K, or maybe this Loser Boy. Yeah, Loser Boy. Police had removed Loser Boy's firearms 2 times, with the last time being July 14, 2019. The man was mentally ill and had a long history with social workers and police for erratic behavior in the past. Loser Boy, 47, was arrested on July 29th after a police officer and social worker driving by his home saw groceries strewn in the driveway. They approached his door and asked if they could come in. Loser Boy agreed. They walked into the home and found the body of his mother, Judith, in a trash can in the living room. Police said that she'd been stabbed multiple times in the chest with a sword before her body was placed in the trash can. Back on July 14th, police were visiting his home after David reported his mother seemed to be having a heart attack. When police ascertained it was only an issue with her medication, they used the opportunity to bring up some guns they had confiscated back in 2017. David, Loser Boy, offered up that he had replaced them by making homemade guns with parts he'd ordered off the internet. He then voluntarily surrendered a homemade AR-15 and a homemade Glock 22 to the police. I'm sure they were 80% lowers and 80% framed for the Glock. Both guns were later found to be inoperable, though police did not report on why. Well, maybe he was incompetent and didn't finish them properly. Police reports indicated
That would be my assumption.
Police reports indicated that the 4 guns were confiscated in 2017 and again in July of this year because Loser Boy didn't have a valid FOID card. Now, not even 2 weeks after being disarmed by police, this mentally unwell man just found another weapon. His mother wasn't safe just because his guns were taken away. People who are a threat to themselves or others won't be stopped by red flags. The abuses of red flag laws aside, they simply won't accomplish what proponents claim they will. If somebody is determined to hurt themselves or somebody else, they will just steal somebody else's gun or find an alternative weapon to use. Last week we told you about a woman beaten to death by a delivery man with a wooden mallet. But the left likes the idea of red flags because it gives them a sense of security. After all, if we take all the guns away from the bad guys, we'll be safe, right? You have to wonder if Judith felt safer after her son's guns were taken away on July 14th. Red flag laws offer a false sense of security, as poor Judith learned in the most terrible way imaginable. So there you have it. Unnecessary, unconstitutional, and ineffective. Why on earth would you remove the guns from the person but leave knives, potential bombs, gasoline, rope, wooden clubs, mallets, samurai swords? I mean, really, if you're going to take a guy's guns, take his frickin' sword, too. If he can't be trusted with one weapon, he can't be trusted with any. But again, as I've told you 100 million times, and I'll tell you 100 million times more, these red flag laws have nothing to do with public safety. These red flag laws have nothing to do with stopping crime. These red flag laws have nothing to do with preventing tragedies. These red flag laws are the same as any gun control. Gun control is never about the gun. It's about the control.
Control.
Period.
Control. Dude, you're hitting the nail.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. This is a truth that I would hold self-evident. See, Sarge says that the suspected murderer we got Monday killed his girlfriend with a knife and a rock, allegedly.
You know how many people fists?
Yeah.
It's far more than any rifle or what they want to call
Yeah, more people are beaten to death with fists and feet than are shot with rifles.
And if the media was truly objective when they're talking about some of these mass murders, or when they're talking about several homicides that happened in one night in one area, and they want to talk about statistics, if they were being objective, if they were really using journalistic integrity, they would bring up the fact that this isn't the most common form of weapon.
Yeah.
That hammers and fists do more, but they're not going to have that sort of integrity. Those
never.
days are long past.
they don't care.
There was just a story recently. Somewhere in North Carolina, some college campus. Some dude was making threats, and they found out that he had a bunch of guns in his dorm room.
Yep.
So they went in and smashed him over the head and locked him up and took his guns away and just kept him from potentially killing a bunch of people because he had all kinds of threats out.
Exactly.
They didn't need a red flag law.
Can I say, don't make...
You can say it's just whether or not your internet will let you.
Yeah.
Don't make...
Is what you're trying to say, don't make threats and you don't have anything to worry about?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to threaten people, you're going to get red flagged or dude, red flag, no. But this is the thing. We're gun owners. Don't red flag. There no red flag laws. You can't make threats. So you're going to get looked at.
That's right. And you should, if you're threatening people, if you are carrying out threats, if you're not carrying out, if you're making threats, especially that nature, you probably should be looked at. You should be investigated.
Exactly.
You should be questioned. They should follow up on it.
But my neighbor says, "Oh, I saw him carry a gun to his car. I feel threatened." That boils down to the.
That boils down to the responding officer, actually the dispatcher, really, in the first case, investigating a little, going, okay, well, what was he doing with it? Well, he was carrying it to his car, because my neighbors could have made that claim today. Oh, he was carrying his guns to his car, because I went to the range to shoot some video. And,
could make that claim about every other day, but...
Okay. Okay, you bring up a good point. I heard that very thing on the police scanner today. The dispatcher calls to one of the patrol cars and says, could you go over to the interstate at this particular area and check on people riding horses on the grass, but a little bit too close to the road? And she said that somebody was driving by and they were concerned that people were riding horseback too close to the interstate. The officer gets back on the radio and tells dispatch, in that area, there's a horse trail that parallels the interstate, and there's a lot of people riding horses. The dispatcher comes back on and says, yes, but this person was very concerned, so could you go over there and make sure? And I'm thinking, wow, if that just didn't sound like somebody butting into somebody else's business over something they didn't know. For all we know, the person driving down the interstate doesn't even live in that area and understand that there's a horse trail right there. But the cop had enough common sense and was from the area and knew. But dispatcher still insisted that she go over there.
You know what gets me is too much has been lost to no common sense.
Yeah.
It's all got political, and we got to do things by the numbers.
Common sense has been perverted by idiots.
Yeah, common sense ain't so common anymore.
Common sense is a freaking superpower anymore.
Yes, it's like, oh my God, what the hell are you people thinking?
Yeah. All right, we're running over here, so let's go ahead and move to Roll Call 219's favorite segment, self-defense shoutouts. For those of you who are new to the show or who have not stuck around to the end, self-defense shoutouts are not where I am reveling in the proposition that the bad guy was killed or injured. I'm, in fact, reveling in the proposition that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to defend themselves against the bad guy. And we only have two since I, kind of used up some earlier in the week. So in the last couple days, we've had two come out. This is from Thursday, August 29th, by Bob Brooks from WPVI. Metro PCS employee fatally shoots would-be robber in Philadelphia. A store employee shot and killed a would-be robber in Philadelphia on Monday afternoon. It happened around 4 p.m. at a Metro PCS store located in the 7000 block of Elmwood Avenue. Police say an armed man in his 30s attempted to rob the store when the Metro PCS employee, who has a permit to carry, shot the suspect. Police say the suspect died at the scene. A male entered the store with a firearm and attempted to rob the store, to which the employee discharged his firearm at the robbery suspect several times, striking him, said Philadelphia Police Captain Scott Driscoll. No other injuries were reported. Neighbors here say they heard shots from inside. Local activist Joar Don says it's unfortunate someone has died, but also says people have to protect themselves. He also says he's grown accustomed to shootings here in the neighborhood. He's doing his job and standing his ground and whatever he had to do. But this is the normal in Southwest. It's an everyday thing. Nothing new for us, said Don. Police confirmed this was the third time recently that someone had come into the Metro PCS store with the intent to rob it. And last but absolutely not least, by Harold Gator in the Mississippi Clarion Ledger from August 30th, 2019. He broke in, had a gun, but residents shot him, Jackson police said. An armed man was shot while breaking into an apartment early Friday, according to the Jackson Police Department. Jonathan Jenkins, 27, is charged with residential burglary, armed robbery, and aggravated assault for the incident that occurred in the 900 block of East Northside Drive, JPD said. Jenkins arrived at a hospital around 1:30 a.m., suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Jenkins told officers he was shot while he was walking on Bowling Street. Police later learned Jenkins matched the description of the subject in the apartment shooting. Jenkins was arrested after he was released from the hospital. The resident, who was not identified, is currently not facing charges, JPD said, and that's how it should be. So there you have it, folks. Two more incidents over the last 2 days. Of the good guy defending himself against the bad guy, despite what the media would have you think.
Yeah, imagine us people as citizens protecting our own. Oh, imagine that. Will it get broadcast? MSN? Nope.
No. That's why people like me have to spread this word.
That's why I'm here. Exactly. The people don't get this. It's like, you can pass on, I've said it all along, ban evil. Wouldn't that solve it? No, it won't solve it, because laws will be broken by people that don't give a crap about laws.
Absolutely right.
We have to protect ourselves, period. And honestly, look at the news. There's some crazy freaking peeps out there, man. It's just messed up. What?
All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and roll up the sidewalks and put away the awnings here. It is time to put this dumpster fire out. I'd like to thank everybody on the panel for stopping by. A&A, is there anything you'd like to plug? Any last words you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Just thank you for the invite, brother. Came in a little late. It's good hanging out. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I don't do much, but yeah, check our channel out on YouTube. Thank you, brother.
Sure, no problem.
Have a great weekend, Labor Day. You doing the 2A thing next weekend? Are you going to make the Creator Summit the following weekend? Just wonder.
I am going to try to, yes. That is my intention.
That it'd be great to see you again, man. That's all I'm saying. Yep. Peace to all. Stay 2A strong.
Absolutely right. Kingpin, anything you'd like to leave us with? Anything you'd like to plug?
Oh no, man! Thanks for having me. Good show.
Hey,
okay, I gotta cut back in for a minute.
Okay.
To say, Kingpin, your new logo and new avatar, the pin with a crown and the pistol, awesome. All right, I'm done. Kingpin, that's great.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, I think if you looking at my screen, you are at 100% thumb ratio tonight because I counted 21 people watching and you got 21 thumbs up. So
sweet. Night Strike. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Words of wisdom, plugs?
Yeah, words of wisdom right here. Here we go. These words of wisdom right here.
There you go. Shall not be infringed.
Also, check out DevTube's Indiegogo campaign. We've hit our initial goal, but we're trying to reach at least the first or the second stretch goal.
I'm going bald.
So, check that out. I'll post the link in the chat for you. So,
check it out, folks. Help. Where are you at with it now? Are you 100% funded on the?
We got the initial goal, but we got some stretch goals that we'd like to be able to meet.
Outstanding.
It just makes it. It just helps the project out that much further.
So does that mean? Does that mean that in the near future I can stop using Hangouts and I can use the chamber for this?
Technically, you could have used it tonight if you just asked.
Oh! Tell him about it, Night Strike, because
I tried getting Gary to use it, but Gary's all thumbs. No, he's all chicken legs. Excuse me. He's all chicken legs.
All right. Squib, is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any final thoughts or plugs?
Have a good weekend.
I'll be working, so yeah, no.
Me too, man. Me too.
Ugh. Labor Day weekend, and we are laboring. Anyhow, that being said, I'd like to thank all you guys for coming by. I really appreciate it. You guys are the majority of why the show is what it is. And speaking of that, the real majority of why the show is what it is, you guys out there on the down there in the YouTube's chat. I love you all. Thank you for coming. As always, I am humbled and amazed that you've decided to spend this time listening to me blather on and on about all this stuff. Again, I don't believe it that week after week you guys watch this. So awesome on you, man. I really love it.
I don't believe it either.
You shut up. As I always do, I want to leave you with the admonition that, oh, by the way, no, let me go ahead and plug. Remember, those of you who are in the Ohio area, September 7th at, I can't remember if it's 11 or noon. I think it's 11 at the State House steps in Columbus, Ohio. The Americans Against Red Flag Laws rally. I will be speaking there. Apparently there are a lot of other speakers that will be there too, so many of whom will probably be far, far better than me, but again, loudmouth with a camera and a microphone, but hey, I'm going to stand up there and be heard, right? So if you can make it, and come shake my paw. And with that... Go ahead.
In there, brother Derek lives right down there. So, yeah, we're going to try and be there.
Alrighty.
I'll get up and speak. I don't care.
So, all right, everybody. As always, tell your Congress critters and elected representatives what you think. Make sure you let them know that these red flag laws are not satisfactory. You will not stand for it, and that any vote for a red flag law will make you vote for their opponent. As always, send them snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, heliograph, semaphore, carrier pigeon, smoke signals, bicycle messengers. Do whatever you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight.